Good morning. I'm coming to you to discuss the story of my brother John Merritt. I'm not a professional actress or anything. I'm reading from information I have written down from the detectives that worked on this case. Um, my brother John Merritt is going up for parole in October, and I'm asking you to look at things and listen to what I say and go to the links and see information where John was wrongfully convicted of the murder of Daryl Davis in 1982. His murder due to systematic governmental corruption. He continues to be victimized by the system. John Merritt's 215 parole hearing, prosecutor Robert Beckel, along with the lead investigator Neil Needham, blatantly misrepresented the facts of the Daryl Davis murder to the parole board in a grandiose manner that sickens one to think that either of these two individuals ever tasked with the responsibility to uphold justice in a state of Florida. That's a statement written by the detectives that previewed boxes of evidence and information that's based on his 40 years of experience. It's my sincere hope that you'll take time to listen to what I say and also to review the links. The murder conviction of John is currently a life sentence for burglary in the murder of Daryl Davis in 1982 in Columbia County, Florida. And one thing I want to interject in here, that my brother is sincerely sorry that two of his friends ever heard about Daryl Davis. I'm going to go into this further. He served his time. He was convicted of it in 1986, but since then the case has fallen apart. But John got a reversal on that, but the prosecutors presented John with a plea deal. If he stopped pursuing his innocence, they would let him have life in prison and not seek the death penalty. Meanwhile, the prosecution added another name to his list. He was a relative of the two witnesses that were against Johnny, who were his friends. They decided to get together after they murdered Mr. Davis and blame Johnny for it. So they just were horrible people. Not that John Merritt was a stellar citizen, but they killed that poor man, and then they walked free until family and friends were able to pursue the weaknesses in this case, which were, there were no fingerprints of John Merritt found at the scene. In 1989, when they were pressuring him to take a plea bargain, it told him that the forensic test of the hair samples had produced inconclusive results. This was untrue. The crime scene hairs had never been compared for comparison with Mr. Merritt at the time of his trial. John Merritt requested DNA testing for exoneration purposes. He was informed by the FDLE that all hairs taken from the crime scene had been returned to the sheriff's office, who in turn said the evidence has been perhaps conveniently lost. Mr. Merritt and his team of attorneys filed for post-conviction relief that the state in bad faith had destroyed the evidence that would exonerate him. The Circuit Court of Columbia County denied this motion in 2017. When Mr. Davis, and I use his name, but lightly not, I feel so sorry for his family and all that they've had to go through. But during the time of his murder, Lake City was a small town. It serves the seat of Columbia County, which has a total population of 35,000. Lake City had a significant problem with corruption. Also, gateway of Florida, Lake City lies at the interstate of I-75 and I-10. Senior law enforcement officers and court officials in Columbia County were participants in organized crime during the early 80s, established by investigations of the FBI, the DEA, and the Internal Revenue Service, and the state attorney's office. This is not hearsay or conspiracy. According to the published accounts, Columbia County Sheriff's Office in mid-1982, after receiving allegations of drug trafficking within the Sheriff's Department, Governor Bob Graham also instructed the FDLE to open an investigation. Steve Spradley was the sheriff of Columbia County at the time that Darrell Davis was murdered. 2 years later, Spradley was indicted by a grand jury on charges of racketeering, perjury, conspiracy to traffic marijuana. The marijuana and the drug trafficking had allegedly been stolen from the evidence room. He was indicted on 27 more counts under a plea agreement. The FBI agreed to drop conspiracy and perjury charges. Spradley served a 10-year sentence in prison. James Daltrey, chief investigator of the Columbia County Sheriff's Office, led the initial investigation of the Darrell Davis homicide. He was later indicted on charges of evidence tampering and perjury. According to news accounts, more than 20 persons, including 2 deputies, were charged. Also in '82, Judge Sam Smith was impeached for obstructing justice after his appeal, his prior conviction, and a sentence for conspiracy to use North 3rd Judicial Circuit as a racketeering enterprise involving bribery, prostitution, dogfight, and drugs. Yes, the focus of the crime probe in Columbia County extended to Judge Vernon Douglas of the 3rd Court, who was named as a grand jury target in the executive order by the governor of Florida. But according to media, Judge Davis was exonerated from these unspecified charges. But years later, In 2013, Judge Douglas denied John Merritt's motion for post-conviction relief despite a significant number of procedural grounds rather than reopen a case from the county's troubled past. I'm getting ready to wrap this up, and I'm going to go over the witnesses that were in the first trial against Johnny. Gerald Skinner was a mentally incompetent convict who concocted a story of murder confessions, falsely implicating John Merritt. Multiple witnesses have now suggested that Gerald Skinner was present at the time of the murder and the actual killer. Skinner was arrested in '85 on burglary charges and sitting in Live Oak, Florida in '85. He was facing felony charges of aggravated battery for shooting a man with a shotgun. Having recently been declared criminally insane or mentally incompetent, and despite having a recent history of shooting people with a loaded gun, police and prosecutors embraced him as a witness. Yes, obviously his usefulness in closing an open homicide case outweighed any considerations about his honesty, trustworthiness, and mental competence. Gregory Hopkins knew Johnny. They had hung out in Virginia, and he was the primary suspect in the murder of Darrell Davis until he agreed to implicate his friend falsely in the process. He got a sweetheart deal and a plea bargain. Multiple witnesses, including his widow, have suggested Gregory Hopkins was present with Gerald Skinner at the Darrell Davis murder scene in '82. When he implicated John Merritt in the murder, Hopkins was facing charges of kidnapping and armed burglary. He was given a tremendous lenient sentence to these crimes. He was sentenced to 1 year in jail time and 15 years probation. Belinda Skinner was the third witness to suggest Gerald Skinner and Gregory Hopkins were actually the ones that broke into Darrell Davis's and murdered him. But all this, it will be on the link. I'm asking you, due to all this, I mean, all of this is from his sister. You don't have to believe it, but John Merritt is going up for parole, and based on all of this, he deserves a chance. He was wrongfully convicted. He helped a friend, Robert Dubois, find evidence to prove his innocence, and that individual is free now because of DNA that was found. But John Merritt's parole hearing will be held in front of the Florida Commissioner on Offender Review. The chairman is Melinda Coonrod, and the address to mail it will also be in our link. But it is 4070 Esplanade, Esplande Way, Tallahassee, Florida, 32399. I thank you for listening. Don't ever think that I don't think about Mr. Davis and how these two people, Greg Hopkins and Gerald Skinner, ended his life and caused his family to suffer. I'm just asking that you give Johnny a chance. It's evident that two individuals did it. and decided to blame my brother. They were friends, and they at one time hung out in Virginia, but this was a way to get out of facing a murder charge. So thank you for listening. Have a good day.